When you think of the Mississippi River, you probably picture, steamboats and Mark Twain. But what if I told you it's actually one of the most powerful economic engines in the United States? That's the paradox here. It's this incredible superhighway that's also, it turns out, incredibly fragile. So let's dive into what happens when that engine starts to sputter, because this is a story that really affects every single one of us.
To really get a sense of the river's power, you just have to look at the scale. I mean, check this out. A single 15-barge tow, that's one unit, carries the same amount of cargo as 1,050 semi-trucks. Can you even imagine that traffic jam? It is by far the most fuel-efficient, lowest carbon way we have to move bulk goods. It's a total marvel of logistics, and it's basically the backbone of American commerce.
And here's how critical it is, especially for our food. A staggering 60%, 60, of all U.S. grain exports travel down this one river system. The Mississippi is literally the main artery that connects America's heartland to the rest of the world. And that directly impacts everything from our global trade all the way down to the price of bread at your grocery store.
But that powerful, super efficient artery? Well, it's in big trouble. We're about to shift gears here from the river's historic strength to its very modern vulnerabilities. This is where the story takes a pretty sharp turn, because it turns out climate change is creating a perfect storm of disruption.
And listen, this isn't just some vague theory. Researchers who dug into the recent crises, they put it very plainly. They said the system faced unprecedented challenges because of extreme heat and drought. That right there sets the stage for a new and frankly dangerous reality on the river. So the researchers use this really interesting term to describe what's happening, a complex disruption. And the key thing to understand here is that this isn't just about one thing going wrong. Nope, it's about several totally separate problems hitting all at once, feeding off each other, and creating this cascading failure that is way, way worse than any single issue on its own.
So what does one of these complex disruptions actually look like in the real world? Well, the study modeled this devastating triple threat. First, it kicks off with a severe drought. Water levels drop so low that barges literally get stuck in the mud. Then, as if that's not bad enough, a critical lock and dam system, one that was built back in the 1930s, fails right at a major choke point. And finally, the third punch, a hurricane slams the port of New Orleans, cutting off vital imports. Any one of those is a disaster. All three at once, it's a total system meltdown.
Okay, so let's talk about the consequences, because this is where it really starts to hurt. When a system like this grinds to a halt, the economic fallout is immediate, and it is dramatic. The very first thing to get hit is the cost of shipping itself.
And here's the first number that just makes your jaw drop. During the recent disruptions, barge shipping rates didn't just go up, they skyrocketed by over 400%. No, that is not a typo, a 400% surge. That's the kind of financial shockwave we're talking about when the river slows down.
So you have to ask, why such a massive spike? Well, it was a complete logistical nightmare. First, barges had to carry way lighter loads just to keep from getting stuck, which means you need more trips to move the same amount of stuff. Then, the time it took to do a round trip nearly doubled. At one point, there were over 2,000 barges just sitting there, creating a traffic jam hundreds of miles long. And the kicker is, for these kinds of huge, bulk goods, there are no other cheap and easy options.
And don't think for a second that this is just a problem for farmers or shipping companies. The whole point is that a bottleneck on the Mississippi River creates a massive ripple effect that's felt in wallets all across the entire country. Let's take a look at the national price tag for this mess.
The economic modeling from this study is it's staggering. In what they call the base case scenario, so the most likely outcome, the disruption cost the U.S. economy over $18 billion in lost GDP. That's that first bar. But look at the second one, the human cost. Over 51,000 job years were lost. These are real, significant national-level impacts.
And what's really eye-opening is the range of possibilities here. That $18 billion loss, that was just the middle-of-the-road base case. If you look at this table, in a less severe crisis, the lower bound, the hit is still almost $10 billion. And in a more severe, longer-lasting scenario, the upper bound, we're talking about a potential loss of almost $25 billion to the entire national economy.
Okay, so here's where it hits home for you personally. That $18 billion hole doesn't just disappear. It gets passed on to consumers. The study estimates that this single supply chain breakdown added more than 1/4 percentage point to the inflation rate. In other words, it made the stuff you buy every single day that much more expensive.
So, after looking at the causes, the crazy costs, you have to ask the big question, what happens next? Because this is about way more than just one river. It's about facing the hidden weaknesses in our most essential critical systems.
So really, it all boils down to this one simple, pretty scary fact. Our entire economic infrastructure, everything from the locks on the Mississippi to the just-in-time delivery systems we rely on, it was all designed and built for a world with a stable, predictable climate.
And that perfectly captures the challenge we're facing now. Because that stable world, it's gone. When we look at the Mississippi, we're seeing the paradox of our modern life. We have this system that is strong enough to power a nation, but it's also fragile enough to be broken by something as simple as a lack of rain and some aging parts. So the question we're left with isn't just about this one river. It's about everything we depend on. Is any of it truly ready for the unstable world we now find ourselves in?